Hey, what's up, family? Welcome back to another installment of Metaphysics on Your Mind. I was having this conversation with a couple of people that I know, and it came up where a question was asked. We're talking about people that grew up, you know, in a religion. And a question was asked about what they were told would happen. This was a hypothetical. If you had a family, say a mother and a father, and let's just say you had two or three children, and and this is not to be morbid or whatever, but let's just say that something unfortunate happened where there was a car accident, and the family was killed. The question was, what would happen with the children as far as would they go to heaven or not? Would the parents go to heaven or not, quote unquote? But the real question was about the children and what happens to them because they're young, they're not adults. They can't, quote unquote, fend for themselves. Let's say these two or three children are under the age of 10. So what would be their destiny in the light of the religion that this family practiced? What would happen to the children? And the answer was, this person was told, when they were younger, that it would depend upon what happened with the parents. So in other words, if the parents were good people and went to heaven, the children would also go to heaven. If the parents weren't good people and didn't make it to heaven, neither were the children, neither would they. And it was interesting because that scenario, that question, came up when I was a kid. And I do remember there was something about the age of accountability that was more or less considered to be the age of 12, which of course probably parallels the story of young Jesus or whatever. But prior to the age of 12, the destiny of the children was tied to the parents. So in this particular scenario, if dad or whoever was driving the vehicle, not a good guy, maybe not the most enlightened person, actually, shall we say, somewhat destructive, and maybe mom is too, who knows? But dad takes a couple of drinks, gets the whole family in the car, crashes the car, and so now you're telling me that the children have the same destiny as the bad or negligent father? That didn't make sense to me then as a child, that answer, because that's what I was given as well. And it makes far less sense to me now. So we're saying that the God, whatever your conception of God, whether whether you want to say, the Most High, the source of all things, whether you want to say Jehovah, Allah, whatever you want to say, Brahma, you're telling me that the creator of this vast experience that we have called life, the cosmos, the intricate organism called humanity, and everything else in between, the dimensions of experience. We talked about the chakras and the seven churches, the system that was bequeathed to us as a covenant where we could use to raise our consciousness, and we could touch the 12 pairs of cranial nerves in our brain. I mean, you're telling me that the creator of this intricate experience can't come up with something better than an individual soul like each of those 3 children. That individual soul is tied to the destiny of their parents because they're not yet at the age of 12. So in other words, as long as those children could be good children, but if the parents are bad because they're not 12, they go to hell with the parents. So I only bring that up, and that's not to point fingers or whatever. The idea here is what is our conception of a supreme being, of God, of the Most High? When you say or think God, what are we thinking? That this, again, supreme being, this creator, this beyond description, and we're a part of it, needs a sacrifice of an animal, a blood sacrifice, even though, we know that literally it reads that way. But we're saying and we're proposing that is not to be a literal interpretation about the sacrifice of a sheep. Okay? The sacrifice of the lamb, the sacrifice of a goat, okay, the sacrifice of a bull. What kind of God are we created by, operating under, serving, if we actually believe, like the depiction in some of the ancient writings is that these civilizations were sacrificing these animals? We know about the scapegoat, okay? That we can't come up with a more enriching conception that this God cares about what day we go to church and what we do at church and what we do at the temple or at the mosque or wherever. I thought it said in the book that God was no respecter of persons. I think those of us who, have a little background in the scriptures, we've read that. Does it mean what it says or does it not? Okay. So we have this idea that there's a way that you should talk and a way that you should look and something you should do on a particular day or something that somehow puts you in the camp of the Most High. When we're told over and over in this book and in other books that it's an individual thing, that the kingdom of God is within you. The temple is within. God says it, the Most High doesn't dwell in a temple made with hands. So we have this idea that this God has to shed blood in order to forgive. I mean, isn't this story here the Zodiac telling us? Remember we said that all these 12 signs represent the parts of the body, the physical, the head, the neck, the shoulders and arms, the breasts, the heart and the spine, the stomach, the kidneys, the genitals, the hips and thighs, the skeleton from the skull down to the feet, the shins and ankles, the feet, the whole thing. So when we hear mention of sacrifices that need to be made where blood flows, is that really what this God needs to forgive and expiate sin? Or is it talking about in the mind where your 12 pairs of cranial nerves that correspond to these 12 signs that interact, is it saying that we should sacrifice the physical self, not literally, but that's what practices like meditation are about, where you sacrifice the physical for a time, where you can then gain enlightenment, where the ego is killed for 15 minutes so that you could get enlightenment from on high, so that the pineal gland, where Christ said the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body would fill with light. Isn't that what it says? We've gone over it. But we think that this God can't come up with a better idea of a destiny of a 9-year-old child, but he's got to go the way that his wayward father or mother goes? Come on. Again, we're not children anymore. And I don't mean any disrespect, but we were given consciousness, brains to think and to weigh. That's what the sign of Libra is about. Weighing, judgment. Okay? We get to exercise that. That's God-given. Okay? So I had to kind of broach this because it just kind of stuck in my head, because that's what I was told umpteen years ago. And again, not to point fingers at anyone, but we have to begin to vet and to weigh what we take in, no matter who it comes from. We're even told by this book, God says, test everything and hold fast to what is good. But you got to do that. Or how do you know what's good? Anyway, thank you.